you have a tax sale and you put down a minimum deposit. Now back then, the minimum deposit was $300. So if you got the property, you could put down $300 and actually walk away with ownership of that property. But it was 10% or $300, whichever was higher. So what I decided to do was go down into an area that I could afford, which was a really posh area called Kensington. Anybody know what Kensington is? Okay. It's not a real posh area. Anyway, in case you're not familiar with it. So I got my list and I said, okay, let me go down to this property. Now the property was located, which was, there was a factory here, there's a lot here, and the property was located there. Oh, by the way, next to the factory and the lot was a dirt road. And this is going to become important in a minute. So I got the address, 2133 Trenton Avenue. So I said, okay, let me go down. I went and knocked on the door. The guy answers the door and he says, can I help you? And I said, well, I understand this property may be up for sale. I didn't want to tell him it was up for tax. So he says, kind of scratches his head and he says, well, I lease you. And I didn't know it was up for sale. Come on in and, be glad to show you around. And we got pretty friendly. We started talking about investing in the neighborhood. We got even more friendly when he invited me downstairs to his recreation room where he had a pool table and a beer bar. So we were talking for a couple hours about real estate investing. And then I said, are you going to rent this to me when you buy the property? He said, oh, yeah, absolutely. So, I didn't tell him it was up for tax sale. So I went a couple days later to the tax sale auction, and the auctioneer said, 2133 Trenton Avenue, and he bids. And I jumped up and I said $300. That was the opening bid. Today it's $600. So it was $300. And the auctioneer said $300 once, $300 twice. No. Somebody else jumped up and they said $400. I said $500. They said $600. I said $700. They said $800. I said $4,000. I screamed it out. Well, this guy that was bidding against me, like, sat down and he had lead in his pants. Bang, he goes down, and you can see me shake. Every time I tell that story, I must have told it 1,000 times, I start shaking because I'm there, okay? So the auctioneer says $4,000 once, twice, sold to the man in the back for $4,000. I figured the property's worth about 20 grand, even 15. If I could flip it out and make some money, that's great, pay some bills. I go running down the aisle. Cash is coming out of my pocket because I got to put down my 10%. People are shoving it back into my pocket. I go down there and I have to hold my hand because it's shaking so much to sign the receipt. Grabbed the receipt, ran to the back of the room. Couldn't wait to go out and start collecting my rent. And I have been telling my bride for a few days that we were going to become millionaires in real estate. I was going to surprise her with it. And I'm going, I am so excited. I don't even remember what happened to the rest of the auction. The auction was all of a sudden over. And the guy that was bidding against me came over to me and shook my hand and he said, you've been here a couple of times. I said, yep. And he said, you haven't bought anything yet? I said, nope. And he said, I'm just curious, I bid against you. And I said, yeah, I thought you did. And he said, I'm just curious, what are you going to do with that empty lot? And I looked at him and kind of gulped. And I said, empty lot? And he says, yeah, the empty lot that you just bought. And so I said, well, and I kind of started stumbling around. And I said, well, what were you going to do with it? He says, I don't know. Must have been worth something. You were really big money. So then I went over to the Recorder of Deeds office and looked up the property I just bought. And found out it wasn't this house over here that I was in that had the beer, but it was this empty lot. So I then went out to my lot and said, what am I going to do with this? Well, I said, maybe this guy in the factory would like to buy it. So I went and knocked on the door. The door was all the way over here. I walk on this dirt road. By the way, the address of the property, 2133 Trenton Avenue, this is Trenton Avenue. This is not Trenton Avenue. This is Witt Street, like in halfway, spelled W-I-T-C. Go look at it. Anyhow, so a young kid answers the door, 17, 18 years old. And he said, can I help you? And I said, yeah, I just bought this lot.